So, Graham Perrett, there a taste of some of the feedback you received. Didn't hear any mention of the broken promise, though. I guess we'll have to wait to see after the Liberals run their intense campaign on that, because as you would know, you're a veteran of this place. That's going to be part of the mix, isn't it, going forward? You're going to have to try and combat that.
Of course. I think people understand, and I should say up front, as I said, Kieran, I'd never put in my brochures, here's the Morrison tax cuts and what they'll mean for Moreton. I'd never sort of badged that as something I was proud of. So maybe people weren't as aware of that. But the reality is, people who thought they were getting nothing and maybe voted that way at the last election now will find out that they're getting something. So some of them will be surprised. And when you explain the circumstances that, there was a pandemic, a spike in inflation, a couple of wars and conflicts around the world, things have changed significantly. All those interest rate rises, the promises made 5 years out don't match the economic circumstances of 2024. That's why we've readjusted. That's why we're going to the Parliament with an amendment, and we'll see what the coalition does. I must admit, I'd rather be a Labor candidate knocking on a door and telling 9 out of 10 doors that you knock on that you're going to get a benefit, rather than looking for that one household that a Liberal person is looking for to say, we're going to reinstall so you get $9 grand rather than $5 grand or $4 grand, $4.5 grand. I'd much rather go to the middle of Australia and saying this is what...
You're pretty comfortable with the backflip, but do you think that the Prime Minister himself loses a bit of political bark through this process? Do you think that that's a reality?
Well, I think people will respect him for being a Prime Minister for today rather than through the lens of five and a half years ago. And if you remember, Anthony Albanese pointed out the problems of attaching a tax break 5 years out. So that the economic team in Labor pointed out those problems 5 years ago. So there will be a little bit of that. And obviously the coalition, if they go through with their promise of repealing these and go to the next election saying we will reinstate the Scott Morrison tax plan, that's a matter for them. They'll take it to the people. But we will go to the Parliament with an improved plan that benefits most Australians. 11, 12 million Australians will be better off. That's something I'm comfortable with. And it's a fairer set of arrangements for most Australians in these current economic circumstances where we're trying to get inflation under control, some good figures.
Yeah. Just to wrap up then, to wrap up our chat, how would you characterise the feedback you got on the doors and then subsequently that you've received through your electorate office? What's the overall response been?
Well, many people made contact before we made this announcement about how concerned they were with the Morrison tax arrangements. So that's the first thing. So I've been in some suburbs that have changed significantly on election night. So I didn't go to a Labor area or a Liberal area. I went to a part of my electorate that swings on election night. And if the response on the doors is anything to go by, I think it augurs well for the next election night next year when it comes around. But we've got a lot more work to do in terms of explaining why we have changed that plan that we supported in the Parliament under Scott Morrison 5 years ago.
A lot more shoe leather to wear out. Graham Perrett, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, Kieran.